and welcome to Rulebreaker. Today we're going to take a look at the universities of Jol-Nar with their mechs and leaders from the Prophecy of Kings expansion for Twilight Imperium 4th edition. So straight off the bat, let's get the elephant in the room brought out. These guys are pretty OP, overpowered in the base game. They're super strong. I think that's a pretty safe assumption amongst the Twilight Imperium community, is that these guys are, if not the best faction in the game, then certainly one of the 2 or 3 absolute best. Always the favourites when they're in the mix in a game. A lot of that is down to the fact that they start with 4 techs, they start with 2 PDS, they've got a really good foothold on getting extra technologies, and the way the game is set with lots of objectives being technology focused, the game can really swing their way based on how the public objectives come out. So I don't think it's particularly controversial to say that these guys shouldn't get a lot of extra superpowers in the expansion, and as you will see, that's kind of the case. They haven't gotten a lot of epic abilities. It's a little bit more of the same and a few small tricks, but nothing amazing, and that is hopefully going to pull them closer to everybody else, and make them interesting to play with and against in future games, and not just be sitting on the sidelines as a banned faction or running away with the game if they're in there. So this is for the best, and you'll see that very shortly. Just a quick reminder, their racial techs are amazing as well. The spatial conjure cylinder gives you really great maneuverability and flexibility with flying around, and the ERES siphons giving you 4 trade goods every time somebody activates a system that contains your ships. So what I've seen happen pretty much every time is the Jol-Nar player is going and getting specifically ERES siphons first, and then spatial conjure cylinder as soon as they can after that, in order to just be almost unstoppable in a lot of games. But anyway, that's enough about what they've been doing before. Let's have a look at what they can do now. They've got an agent called Dr. Sukaban, a commander called Ta-Zern, a hero called Rin the Master's Legacy, and a mech called Shield Paling. So let's dive right in and talk about the agent, which has the text: when a player spends resources to research, you may exhaust this card to allow that player to remove any number of their infantry from the game board. For each unit removed, reduce the resources spent by 1. So the universities of Jol-Nar, they don't really have a economy problem when they've got ERES siphons in, and if players are getting aggro with them and giving them all those trade goods. They also find it relatively easy to conquer planets, and with the technologies that they're getting constantly each round, they can usually afford to get 2. So this ability isn't something that I feel is a direct kind of ability that's going to make a huge difference for them. Where I see this being really beneficial is as a bargaining chip with other players, because it's when a player spends resources to research. It's not tied to the Jol-Nar player themselves, so they could offer this to other players, and what's going to happen there is often players might take the bait and go for that if they're short on costs. Deals can be done, and the benefit there is that not only are you making friends with people by doing this, but you're also taking some of their infantry off the board. If you are a good wheeler and dealer at the table, you might even convince them to take specific infantry off the board, making an invasion possible. So something to consider there. It is an exhaustibility, so you can only do that once per round. But because technology only happens once per round at the best of times, that's fine. It's not even really much of a deterrent. So this one, if you're smart about it, can be an interesting negotiation tactic. But as far as being a direct ability that you're going to do yourself, probably not something you're going to really do much. It is worth noting that the infantry, you get 2 infantry for 1 resource. So you could stockpile a bunch of infantry somewhere and use them to pay for technologies later down the line if you like. Something to think about. But the main thing I see happening with this, other than that, is going to be doing some deals with your opponents. So interesting, not something that's going to boost the Jol-Nar up in a particular way, just make something they do anyway slightly more efficient, I guess. Yeah, so moving on to the commander, which unlocks when you own 8 technologies. Bear in mind you do start with 4, so you're likely to get to 8 maybe on round 2 if you're building 2 techs each round, which they can do as part of their faction ability. So once you've got that 8, you unlock this ability, which flips over and reads, after you roll dice for a unit ability, you may reroll any of those dice. So unit abilities, just to remind you specifically, they are anti-fighter barrage, bombardment, planetary shield, space cannon, and sustained damage. Die rolls only affect anti-fighter barrage, bombardment, and space cannon, so you got a reroll on those, which is great. I think that's nice to have, especially anti-fighter barrage. I think that's one that's a bit underestimated. Having a reroll on that can make a big difference in combat, especially if you've got upgraded destroyers. This one is an always on ability. It's not an exhaust like the agent, and if you are in an alliance with somebody with a promissory note, they have the ability as well. So particular factions are going to love this. Again, it is reliant on the die rolls, but having some mitigation is better than having none, and having that option is a nice little bit insurance policy when you're being brave and deciding to go for an attack. So again, nothing too flashy. Again, it is randomness mitigation to some degree, so it's hard to quantify. So maybe we'll just move on to the hero and talk about that. So Rin the Master's Legacy unlocks when you've scored 3 objectives, same as every other hero in the game, and then it flips over and becomes Genetic Memory, the Brilliance of the Hylar, which is an action which reads, for each non-unit upgrade technology you own, you may replace that technology with any technology of the same colour from the deck. Then purge this card. So we know the Jol-Nar love their technologies. I mean, they're starting with 4. What this is allowing you to do here is once per game, because you're going to purge it after you do it, take all of your technologies if you want, add them back into your deck and pick any number to equal them as long as the colours match. Like, so you can get rid of anti-mass deflectors and change it for gravity drive or light wave deflector, and so on. The way I see this one going is the Jol-Nar don't really have a problem getting technologies, but what might happen now that this ability is in the game is I see them possibly going for more unit technology upgrades than they would normally, because they can just drop any of the starting ones that they have and get the high-end technologies of those colours later, potentially, depending on what they're trying to do. But the Jol-Nar, again, they don't really have a problem gaining technologies. So as heroes go, this one isn't particularly game changery like some of the other ones are. I feel like this is a bit more of the same. I don't see this being like a massive deal in most games. It is a way to get all of the most difficult to get technologies, I guess, but you're going to be throwing away other ones in order to do that. And again, the Jol-Nar are able to research a lot anyway. So I think this one is slightly underwhelming, actually, the Genetic Memory. But you know, you guys are probably smarter than I am on this stuff, so in the comments tell me why I'm wrong. Moving on to the Mech Shield Paling, which reads, your infantry on this planet are not affected by your fragile faction ability, which, if we look at the front of the board, is the -1 penalty that all units get as the Jol-Nar. And you'll see that the Mech itself actually has this penalty on it as well. So it's 2 cost 6 combat, but really in reality you need 7s to hit with it, and it has sustained damage. So the name kind of gives it away a little bit here. This one, it's a shield for your infantry. The Mech is a nice accompaniment for having lots of infantry on a planet in defense, or likewise in an invasion. Dropping down a Mech with your infantry is going to level the playing field out a little bit more. And combine that with your infantry 2 unit technology, that's going to make things a little bit more palatable in combat for you with their infantry, meaning that the Jol-Nar actually can kind of do invasion fighting now, where they couldn't really do it before, not in a fair fight anyway. So that's really it for the Mech. That's kind of it for all of their new stuff. As you can see, they haven't gotten a huge upgrade here. It's a little bit more efficiency game, some stuff that looks good on paper but is actually hard to quantify, like the diary rolling, and this technology reset that remains to be seen whether that's actually very useful or not. The other great leveler in the Prophecy of Kings box is actually the inclusion of new objectives. So the deck is quite big now when you look at the different ones, the publics, the stage 1, stage 2 and the secret objectives. There's a lot more of them, and there's a lot more dilution of the technology specific objectives, meaning that the Jol-Nar don't have that automatic 2, 3 or 4 or possibly more victory points in the bag from technology objectives, meaning that there's actually quite a strong chance that they're going to have to go off and do other stuff in order to win the game, particularly in a 14-point game. That's very healthy for the game. That means that the Jol-Nar are not going to be walking over everybody every game or being banned from play by people who are sick and tired of seeing them win every single game. So that's awesome. I think that's the best thing about the expansion in regards to the Jol-Nar, is that it actually brings them back, balances them in a little bit more closer to everybody else. And that's kind of it for them. The hated Jol-Nar, the peaceful technology guys who have dominated the Twilight Imperium metagame for quite a while. Let's see if that's still the case. I think it may probably still be that they're very strong, but I think a lot of other races have the opportunity to overtake them, or at least catch them up now, making for a better game. So that is the Jol-Nar. We'll leave it there. If you guys have played with the Jol-Nar or against them since Prophecy of Kings has come out, please let me know how you got on. I'd love to hear it. I haven't played with or against them myself yet, so I'm very excited to hear what you have to say. And in the meantime, subscribe here to Rulebreaker. We'll have more videos very soon, the rest of the factions to finish up, and lots more after that. So thanks very much for watching, and we will see you soon.